Hello, grandson. This is your grandfather. And I've told you some stories about Jack. But the one story I haven't told you yet is probably the one you've been waiting for. Jack and the Beanstalk. Now, this is a tale about when Jack was a tiny little boy. And he was sort of puny young one, and he was crying one day, and his mother was sweeping the house, and she was getting bothered by how fussy Jack was. So she picked up a leftover green bean and said, "Jack, you go plant this bean tree out in the yard, and it'll make a giant beanstalk for you." Well, she didn't know that was true. She was just trying to give him something to do. So Jack ran out, and he planted it. And he didn't cry anymore that day. He just watched the ground, waiting for that beanstalk to come up. And he waited the next day and the day after that. And pretty soon that bean started growing. And it grew through the ground until it was about a knee high. And his mama came outside and saw Jack laying on the ground staring at this tiny little beanstalk. It was only just about knee high. And asked, "What in the world are you doing?" And he says, "I'm watching this green bean grow into a giant beanstalk. It's going to be bigger than a tree." And his mama just laughed at him. And the next day, Jack came and told his mama, "Mama, that beanstalk is bigger than the house. Its top is plumb out of sight." So she didn't believe him at all. And Jack said, "Well, I'm going to climb up to the top of that beanstalk and see what I can see how high that beanstalk goes." So his mother told him he shouldn't do that, but he had his mind set on it. So Jack said he'd pull a mess of beans off the beanstalk and they could have him for supper that night. So he started climbing that beanstalk. He climbed, and he climbed some more. And he kept going up and up and up, and he climbed all day long until pretty soon it was dark. And he got up into the clouds, and he found that he could walk around up there. And he came to a big old house, and he knocked on the door. And this big woman came and opened it, looked down at Jack and said, "Law, stranger, what in the world are you doing up here?" And he says, "Why, I just came up here because I wanted to come up here. And this happens to be my bean tree. And I can climb it if I want to." "Well," says the woman, "you'd better get down from this bean tree. My old man's a giant, and he'll kill you if he sees you." And Jack said, "Well, it's getting mighty late. I can't go back down in the dark. I don't know what I'm going to do." And the giant woman said, "You come on in and I'll hide you for the night, but you'd better leave early in the morning." So Jack went into the house, and the giant woman put him into the bake oven and put the lid on top of him. And the old giant came in directly and looked around and said, "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Being he alive or being he dead, I must have me some." Well, the old lady says, "No, you don't smell an Englishman. That must be the lamb chops that you ate here for lunch today." And the old man looked around a little bit more, and finally he settled down. They ate supper, and they went off to bed. Well, Jack pretty soon started hearing some snoring going on. So he figured the giant and his woman were asleep, and he was safe to get out of hiding. And he got out of hiding, and he saw this big old rifle hanging over the fireplace, and he took it down the bean tree with him to take it home. He figured it was his beanstalk, and everything on the beanstalk was his anyway, so it wasn't like he was stealing or anything. Well, he played around with that rifle gun for a few days and began to get a little tired of it, so he decided he'd go back up that beanstalk and see what else he could find. So he climbed the beanstalk again, and the old woman was laying out on the steps and says, "Why, you little scrap, you decided to come back here again? My old man's gonna kill you for sure. He saw that his rifle gun was gone. You better not try that tonight. You better not try anything tonight." "Well," said Jack, "if you hide me this time, I'll surely not come back again. It's getting too late for me to climb back down the beanstalk." So she took him and hid him under the bread bowl. And the old giant came in and said, "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be him alive or be him dead. I'm going to have me some supper." "Oh, no, you must be mistaken," says the old woman. "That's the lamb chops you ate for lunch today. That's what you smell." And the old giant looked around and says, "I know I smell an Englishman around here somewhere." And she said, "Nope, nope, you can look all you want, but you're not going to find any." And he did look around. He didn't find anything. Pretty soon they all went off to bed, and both of them went to sleep, and Jack came out, looked around, and he saw a nice skinning knife that you could use to go fishing or hunting with. He decided he liked that, so he took it and slipped that back down the bean tree. And Jack's mother said, "It looks like stealing to me," but Jack said, "It's his beanstalk. Whatever's on that beanstalk has to be his anyway." Well, he played around with that knife for a while, and then his mother noticed he was getting tired of that knife and said, "Jack, why don't you just give me that knife and forget about that beanstalk?" And Jack said, "There's just one more thing I want up that beanstalk." So Jack took a hand axe and climbed the beanstalk about halfway through and left the axe lying by the tree about halfway up, and he kept climbing up until he got to the giant's house again. And the old woman opened the door and said, "My goodness, Jack, is it you again? My goodness, we've had so much trouble with you. My old man, he's missed his rifle gun, and he's missed his knife. And I know you took both of those things. He's going to kill you for sure if you show up here again." And Jack said, "This bean tree belongs to me, not you. So I reckon I can have anything up here I want. Now, I've been pretty good to you, but you're going to have to hide me one more time." "Well, I'll hide you one more time, but you got to promise never, ever to come back up here again." And Jack says, "I promise, but if you hide me, it'll be an accommodation." And she took Jack and set him in the corner and put the old giant's head on top of him. And the old giant came in and he said, "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be him alive or be him dead. I'll grind his bones to eat with my pones." "Just look then," said the old lady, "and if you find him, you can surely kill him and eat him." So the giant looked around, smelled all over the place, trying to find Jack. He looked in the bake oven, he looked under the bowls. "Sure seems like I can smell one," said the giant. But he never did look under his hat. And pretty soon they went to bed, and pretty soon Jack heard the giants snoring again. He came out from under that hat. Now there was a cover lid over the old giant's bed, had little bells sewn all over it about an inch apart. And that's what Jack wanted so bad, this lid with all these bells on it. He knew that it would rattle if he touched it and it would wake up the giant. So Jack went in and fixed up all the chairs close to the bed, took the old giant's boots and hid them. And then Jack cropped up and raised one corner of the rug, and the bells went dingle, 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 and woke up the giant. And he sat up and hollered, "Scat! Scat!" And Jack kept real still until the giant laid back down and set to snoring again. The giant must have thought he was nothing more than a little annoying mouse or something telling him to scat. Well, Jack went in and eased the door open, and he got back and he took good hold of the cover lid with the bells and jerked it off and made for the door as fast as he could run, and the bells rattled and rang and dinged, and the old giant jumped up and started busting up all the chairs that were in his way that Jack had put there. And he says, "Where's my boots? Where's my boots?" And Jack was just sailing down toward the beanstalk tree, and the old giant kept knocking them chairs around, saying, "Where's my boots, old woman? Where's my boots?" And the old lady says to him, "They're right there where you left them, I reckon." Well, he had to get a light, and finally he was able to find them. He put them on, and he ran after Jack. And this was Jack's plan, just to make it so that the giant would have a long time before starting to chase him down. So Jack had a good head start. And Jack was scooting down that bean tree as fast as you could possibly scoot down. In fact, it was almost as fast as if he was falling. He got onto the ground where he was about halfway down the beanstalk, and he reached for his axe that was still propped up against the beanstalk and on one of the leaves, and he began to chop, 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 chop. And the beanstalk fell down. He cut it clear in half. Took an hour and a half for that huge beanstalk to finally hit the ground, but eventually it did. And Jack went along to see how far away the old giant was. He found about a half a mile. He only had one boot on at the time. And Jack went across the country to where the giant's house fell. The dishes were all broken up pretty badly, but he and his mother, they got a pretty good supply of giant dishes that weren't smashed up. So he'd done pretty well, old Jack and the beanstalk. We've planted a lot of green beans, and I haven't seen a giant beanstalk yet.